101, week 13, part 5. All right, let's take a look at what we got here. So he's arguing that maybe if we need to be happy, we need to experience negative emotions. We're going to need pain. We're going to need failure. We're going to need to think about unpleasantness. We're going to need to think about these things. All right, let's see what he has to say. So he says, and I'm on the top of page 3 here. He says, in the world of self-help, the most overt, meaning the most obvious, expression of our obsession with optimism is the technique known as positive visualization. Mentally picture things turning out well, the reasoning goes, and they're far more likely to do so. Right? So people tell you that all the time. Just think positive thoughts. Think good. People go, keep your fingers crossed. Just picture it coming out well, and that'll help. Indeed, a tendency to look on the bright side may be so intertwined with human survival that evolution has skewed us that way. In her book, The Optimism Bias, the neuroscientist Tali Sharot combines growing evidence that well-functioning mind may be built so as to perceive the odds of things going well as greater than they really are. Non-depressed people, research suggests, generally have a less accurate and overly optimistic grasp of their true ability to influence events than do those suffering from depression. She says, so people who are not depressed, like people who are just, they don't have that, people who are not depressed, they'll predict things are going to turn out well, and they're going to be wrong a lot of the time. And actually, in a weird way, depressed people, when they predict things are going to go bad, they're more likely to be right. That's interesting, right? So he's arguing, he suggests that maybe it's hardwired into human survival, and he links to a book. Notice what he did there. It's exactly what I asked you to do in paper 3, the paper that has some research in it, which is he quotes someone else, right? Notice what he did there, though, right? He put the title of the book, The Optimism Bias. He put the person's name, Tali Sharot, and he said why she matters. She's a neuroscientist, right? So he put all this stuff introducing where this information is, and he explained it, and now he's connecting that book and what he read there to his main point, doing just what I asked you guys to do. So he says, so it says a lot of people. So people who don't have depression will predict, they focus on the positive, glass half full, things are going to go well, and they're wrong more often than depressed people. And then he looks at the other side, because he likes to go back and forth and look at two sides. Yet there are problems with this outlook, aside from just feeling disappointed when things don't turn out well. Over the last few years, the German-born psychologist Gabrielle Oettingen, I don't know how to say that, and her colleagues have constructed a series of experiments designed to unearth the truth about positive fantasies of the future. The results are striking. Spending time and energy focusing on how well things could go, it has emerged, actually reduces most people's motivation to achieve them. That's interesting. So this again, he quotes the person. She's a psychologist and got her name there. She's got results of her study. Spending time and energy focusing on how well things could go reduces most people's motivation to achieve them. Meaning, like, when you think about how good it's going to go, you don't work as hard because you're spending your time picturing it like it's already done. Right, it doesn't go as well for you. It doesn't go as well. You spend your time thinking about how good it's going to go. You don't spend the time doing the things to make it actually go good. And he has an example here, so let's look at his example. Experimental subjects who were encouraged to think about how they were going to have a particularly high-achieving week at work, for example, ended up achieving less. In one ingenious experiment, Oettingen had participants rendered mildly dehydrated, and then some were taken through an exercise that involved visualizing, meaning just picturing it in your mind, visualizing drinking an icy, refreshing glass of water, while others took part in a different exercise. The water visualizers experienced a significant reduction in their energy levels as measured by blood pressure. Far from becoming more motivated to hydrate themselves, people responded to positive visualization by relaxing. They seemed subconsciously to have confused imagining success with having already achieved it. So that's that. I mean, it's a kind of goofy example, but somebody did an experiment, and if you're thirsty and you just imagine you're drinking water, it actually causes you to feel better, but to do worse. Because you're dehydrated and you need water. And because you pictured it, you were less motivated to get some. You were just sitting there thinking about it, and like, that's close enough. Okay, cool. All right, let's see where else he goes. This is pretty simple. I want to stop and have a whole big philosophy discussion, but like, pretty easy. It doesn't necessarily follow, of course, that it would be a better idea to switch to negative visualization instead, right? So it's not that doesn't mean you have to think bad thoughts, but he wants to talk about how thinking bad thoughts can actually help you. Yet that is precisely one of the conclusions that emerges from Stoicism, a school of philosophy that originated in Athens a few years after the death of Aristotle and that came to dominate Western thinking about happiness for nearly 5 centuries. So Stoicism is a type of philosophy, and he's going to define it, but it's a type of philosophy that came about a few years after Aristotle. Now, I'm not going to do a whole thing here, but I will say Socrates, who you've been reading all semester long, never wrote anything down, had a student named Plato. Plato wrote down what Socrates said. Maybe he made some stuff up. I don't know. But the point is that Plato was Socrates' student. Aristotle was Plato's student. So you can say this. I like the ability to connect this to what we already know. Like that really helps. So this guy wants to talk about Stoicism, which popped up right after Plato's student Aristotle was a big deal. I don't talk about Aristotle much because I'm not a big Aristotle. There's Plato people and there's Aristotle people, and I'm a Plato person. I think Plato's more literature and imagination and mythology, and Aristotle's more of a scientist. I'm not a scientist. Okay. Okay, so let's see what he has to say about this. So, and this is what's interesting about this is that Stoicism was considered a big deal for a long time. We don't do it anymore, but it used to be considered. It was kind of a major philosophy for a long time. So he's going to tell you what Stoicism is. For the Stoics, that's people who believe in Stoicism. For the Stoics, the ideal state of the mind was tranquility, peace. So the way you want your mind to be is peaceful. For the Stoics, the ideal state of mind was tranquility, not the excitable cheer that positive thinkers usually seem to mean when they use the word happiness. And tranquility was to be achieved not by chasing after enjoyable experiences, which is what most people do. They want to go to a concert, that'll be fun. Go to the movies, that'll be fun. Have a drink of alcohol, that'll be fun. They don't do it like that. Tranquility was achieved not by chasing after enjoyable experiences, but by cultivating a kind of calm indifference towards one's circumstances. So you got to kind of be calm and not care so much what's going on around you, right? Indifference towards one's circumstances. You don't care that much about what's going on around you. One way to do this, the Stoics argued, was by turning towards negative emotions and experiences, not by shunning them, meaning not by rejecting them, but by examining them closely instead. So the Stoics said you should think negative thoughts, think about bad stuff. And it'll keep your mind peaceful. Now that seems like a strange idea, but that's the idea that they had. And he's going to give some more examples. Right now, that probably doesn't make sense to you, but he's going to give some more examples that are going to help it make sense. It's a different. Most like Americans, their goal is to be happy, and they chase after happiness. And so they want to go from enjoyable experience to enjoyable experience to enjoyable experience, right? They want to hang out with their friends and go to a party and watch a movie and go to a concert. They just want a series of enjoyable experiences, and they tend to get upset when they have to do things that are not enjoyable, like go to work or clean up cat vomit or whatever. The Stoics were after something else. They thought the best way to live life was not by chasing happiness, but by keeping your mind peaceful. And part of that involved not caring about the world around you so much. It's a little bit like Buddhism, like a monk. You don't get so invested, don't care so much about what's going to happen next. And that's the idea. And that one of the things they said that would help keep the mind peaceful was thinking about negative thoughts, which seems like a strange thing, because usually when I think negative thoughts, like if I think negative thoughts, I feel like I feel terrible. I don't feel peaceful at all. I feel fucking terrible. Like if I'm on an airplane and I start thinking, God, shit, is this plane gonna fucking crash? Like I get stressed the fuck out. But they have a way of doing it that where they think if you think negative thoughts, if you focus on the negative, it can actually help you to calm down. He's gonna give some examples of why that would be. See you in the next video.